Last time I reported our solvency goal, our solvency percent was 10.99 on July 11th. As of August 3rd, it went down to 8.37. There's still activity going on, so it's still a moving target, but I updated that. And that's the only update I have.
Was there unexpected expense or what moved?
Tuitions. And I'll refer to the tuitions later in the bills and show you what a big amount that is. So, okay.
For the 2017-18 goals, you want to speak to that?
Right. For those of you that didn't have a chance, we had a work session, and it was really a great work session. I think it was a give and take from all people. It was the board and the administrative team. And what we have put together is, this isn't a draft yet, it isn't in the sentence form like we had talked about, but wanted to at least take a look at what we would like to make sure that we have out for our 17-18 goals. And we talked about the 21st century learning, and I'm not going to go through each of those, but I do want to make sure that you're aware of what we're talking about here. And you can take a look at that first one about the PBL outcome. Carrie, do you want to add anything to that as far as I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but the PBL portion of it?
I don't think.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Maybe just a little background on the IPI, you know, just a little bit about what that meant for people that weren't at the meeting.
Well, I think that one of the things that we were hearing was, where are we with student engagement? I think that we know all kids say, oh, what did you do at school today? Nothing. Or the school grade, oh, it was boring. And, you know, I mean, and that's the pat answer, and that's been the pat answer for, I'm sure I said that when I was in school. But, so what we were looking for is, how can we gauge that? You know, how do we get a number for how are our kids engaged? IPI is a tool that can be used as a walkthrough tool where you're looking for certain things and you're gauging that. Now we have to remember it's a number that we'd like to collect a baseline, and then from there we can set goals as to what are the areas that we see we need to work on. But before we can do it, we would have to be we would like to train administrators and our instructional coaches to be part of that, because it's not about evaluating people. It's not an evaluation tool. It's really a tool to see where are we at, and then how can we move forward with that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. The one thing we talked about at that work session was at what level to measure. So you talked about rolling it up so that it felt like it was some sort of an evaluation. Instead, it was either the building or department level. I mean, do you have any further conversation on that? We can take that.
So it's not like we would go in and we'd be rating, oh, Mrs. Griffin, she scored a 1, or like that. And it's data that we could maybe look at it as, do we want to just look at elementary as a whole? Then later, do we want to maybe break it down by grade levels? But we wouldn't, at the beginning, it's not going to go down specifically down by teacher, but we could look at the high school, for example, we could look at departments. Same with the middle school. We do look at departments, we could look at grade levels, we could look at it lots of different ways, but once again, it would not be an evaluative tool. It would be a tool for us to look at where we are as a district, and then when we saw that, when we take a look at that data, then we would say, okay, what are the steps we want to take to move forward to up X, Y, Z. So right now we'd be gathering baseline data on that.
And probably would make the most sense is whatever would create the best collaboration to roll it up.
And the great thing, we already have teams in place. I mean, we've got grade level teams in all buildings. We have at the middle school, Mike has got not only time for grade level teams to collaborate, but there's also going to be time in the week to have content areas collaborate. So we've got and same with Vic. So we've got lots of different things in place where we can bring different groups of people. So it's not always going to have to be the same people in place.
Well, that would be good too.
So. And the other piece to that too with the PBL was still using the AIW framework as our the scoring tool as we look at that. So yep, are we using the PBL information, but we're still using the IW tool to see how our students constructing their own knowledge during that time. Not just, it shouldn't just be all about the product, about the process. It's equal. Process that they're going through, and then what came of that. And I think we talked about that at our work session. I mean, we've heard things that people have said, oh, you know, if your process is flawed, what kind of product are you going to get? But on the other hand, if you get a crappy or not a very good product, sorry about that. You don't get a very, if your product isn't well, that, I mean, in the real world, you don't sell something that's mediocre. So that's where the AIW piece comes into.
So,
And I think the teachers have been, I mean, last year when we did this, and we brought teachers in and we said, okay, what do you want, what data do you want us to collect from you? They actually wanted more information than we would have said. Like, they wanted to have more pieces of student evidence to gather for us to score.
So would it make sense to clarify up front even at what level, just so that it's clear? And you talked about, several of you talked about making sure there wasn't anxiety with any teachers. Because the goals, I mean, these, I think I understand, Lindsay, you're trying to keep it pretty high level, but at some point what's communicated and what's expected needs to be pretty clear.
I think from a school-wide data collection piece, we do by building. So it's going to be the elementary, I mean, we may look at it district-wide as well, but we'll be able to, we'll put that data at the building level. What I found when I've done this in the past is teachers want their individual data. So I think at that point, that's when we would, not for this goal specifically, but that would be the point at which we would maybe break it down by content team or grade level team or something like that. But I think we'd really wait for the, I guess, the staff reception to drive that bus just a little bit, which moving forward. But at this level, I see it being a building.
I would say too, we looked at, when we first did the correlation study AIW-wise, we were even leery at that point of breaking that down by buildings. Because what we didn't want to have is, oh wow, look at the elementary. Their correlations, they were way up here on the graph, and there's the middle school, they're way down here. So I mean, and that isn't what happened, but so I think we have to look at that data to see how do we want to break that down. Because if we see we're kind of, if maybe we're all the same, we just say this is where we are as a district. But you're kind of looking at me kind of funny there, Tyler.
Well, I'm just saying, if it's a benchmark, we need to say, what are we benchmarking, right? And if it's at the district, I mean, what I heard the other night, made a lot of sense. You don't want to make teachers anxious. We need to be really clear on what we're going to measure, how we're going to measure it. Only the best time to be really clear is up front with a goal, right? And so if it's going to be at the building level.
Well, we can do it at the building level. When we did the AIW, we did it as a district. That's all I'm saying. And so, I mean, we can do it however we want to do it.
I think there's enough number in the sample when you do it that I think some of that, sometimes when you do the building, when we did the AIW, you know, you only had 15 in a sample size, where this is going to be 100 is going to be our sample size of observation. So I think that helps offset some of that we would almost pinpoint it down to.
And I would think the baseline would be much higher for the elementary grades than it is going to be for the middle school and high school, just as I think the data supports that it's more difficult to keep students engaged the further they get on in the grade level. So is that, do you think that's right?
I think too, it depends on the classroom. I mean, it really does. I mean, some classes lend themselves more to that engagement that you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
So,
sure.
So we want to make sure that when we put these out to our staff that we're saying what we have collectively talked about through our work session and what we're talking about here to kind of iron out those things. Is there something that you would like to see further on that step 2 that is not put in there, or?
Probably just the, kind of just the timeline for fleshing them out, when we're going to kind of add the bullet points to them, or
Okay.
Is there going to be some more flushing out of them, or what? I mean, what's your kind of thought on that?
So you would like to see more bullet points underneath that portion of it there?
Well, I just thought that there would be some strategies underneath
Okay.
those. That was my thinking, is to.
So kind of like step one.
You want the action plan?
Step two.
Piece.
Well, for me, why my comments is because I really appreciated the work session we had, and I fully appreciated the anxiety that could create for teachers. And if I'm a teacher and if I read that bullet point, I don't know how you're going to use that based upon that bullet
So
point.
really, the first bullet, or the first piece of that action plan has to be, we have to be trained. And we cannot be trained, the training is in October. And so that's the first thing. So then after we're trained, then we have to set up our
Communicating it to everyone.
communicating that out, and what are those walkthroughs? How are we going to set those up? Are we going to do them all on the same day? So I think that until I am leery of really setting up what that a solid timeline of that until I know in my head exactly what that's going to entail. Does that make? So I think that all that we could say, I mean, if we're going in hopefully October, then we can say, you know what, we're going to do some practice walkthroughs the month of October. Then when we get into November, we're going to, I mean, we could do something like that. I mean, that would work.
Maybe we just add based on future training,
Yeah.
you know, because quite honestly, student engagement is the whole point of being a teacher and being in school, right? And so this is year one. We're just measuring, right? We're trying to evolve to the next step and finding out, we think something's really great. How truly great is it, right? What do our kids think? And is it, you know, driving this lesson home? So let's tweak the wording so no one is anxious about this whole thing, and then move forward. We don't have a benchmark, right? Because we don't know where we are. This is year one.
We don't know.
So if you're asking me, I would say put right in there, we're establishing benchmarks. We're establishing it at a very high level. Don't, I mean, as you shared with us last week, don't put the teachers on defensive. I mean, it says teachers' lessons. Well, I don't know if I read that, how I would take
Yeah, no,
that.
I would even
establishing benchmarks,
Yeah,
we're going to be at a very high level.
Establishing the program,
I think we
maybe
should
that's
take
the
that
first
out.
step.
Again, I would not, because I think that's a little misleading. So I think, you know, data collected through the use of the instructional practices inventory. I just leave it at that. Because I think, yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Very good.
Take a look at number 3. I'm going to finish writing down what we talked about there. Under that one, the thing that, if you've set in on the school improvement advisory, you know how difficult it is to set those goals. I think, Deb, didn't you get the chance to report back to the board on that as far as one of the group? The thing that I think we've talked about in those meetings about trying to do something like this, where we look at trying to move those students, moving them from the proficient to the advanced, and doing that through their ICDP. Questions? Any comments from administrators? Okay. Next one talks about strategic resourcing and supporting the vision. As you all know, that we are working with Halen Associates. We want to make sure that we're implementing the facility plan that will make sure that we're meeting the 21st century learning needs. We are in the process right now of setting up, there will be one-to-one meetings that will be happening with each of the building principals regarding their particular area as far as possible projects that might be out there. And then there will also be another second round of group meetings. And it's interesting, when we were talking about the group meetings, and some of the, I got to get the roster of the group for some of the new people that are in those positions there to make sure that you know who did you invite last time, or we can invite anyone that really wants to come, but who was invited and what time are we looking at for those. I think we're looking at the week of August 28th We will be looking at that, and I think the last one is September 6th. But those will be coming out also. We've got a newsletter that has to come out, so I'll try to put some information in on that. You can take a look at prioritizing the process. You know, we talked about as we're moving forward and we're trying to get a priority as far as this whole process that we're bringing together with the long-range planning. We want to make sure that we have the prioritized process out towards the public and that we communicate what that process is so people know that we're just not saying, well, yeah, that kind of sounds neat, or this would be really nice to have. There is a process, and we want to make sure that, I heard time and time again at our meeting the other night or our work session, it's bond communication. If that bond, we look at whether it be February or April, if it's going to pass, we got to make sure that we are staying focused on that first step, and that's that priority. Financial transparency. We've even talked about this after our work session the other night, and that's sharing any of those key financial indicators with, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, I don't know if we just, should we just say sharing financial indicators with stakeholders rather than key stakeholders? I don't know if we want to share it with everyone, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
All stakeholders.
All stakeholders maybe we could put in there, and it's just a difference of the word, but that's important too, because you know as well as I do that when we start to look at these things, some of the questions that will be asked right up front, can you afford it? Can you afford to do what you're talking about? And if you do, how are you going to do that? Questions under B. Did I leave something out? If I did, let me know.
So if I'm a community member, can you describe that second bullet point again? I mean, what as a goal, what are you trying to communicate?
I think, you know, when we had Tyler, when we had that those forums and we had what were the priorities, this would be our top priority as we move down on those projects. I think that we need to be very, very clear when we talk to our patrons about that and how we're establishing those.
Okay, so my question, I guess, is what, as a district, what then is the goal out of that? I mean, it says prioritization of the process.
Right. What I think that we need to let our patrons know is this is the prioritizing process that we've had, and this is what we'll look at when we're looking at what type of projects we will have.
So are you thinking more forums, a survey? How do we, because we've set priorities
Right.
with the help of HALA and the groups that have met with them. So is your thought that we're going to now communicate that to the public and garner feedback prior to a bond?
I think
so we know we're striking for the right?
I think what we do is we go ahead and we provide that feedback to them in a variety of ways. I think we provide it through them through email, through social media, through a forum or forums, and make sure that we are all on the same page, that the public is agreeing with our priorities that we put out there so that we're not having any type of a gap.
Okay.
But wouldn't it be more, our goal would be the successful passage of the bond issue, right?
Right.
And then as a part of that, we need to prioritize the process. So I think that would be a
underneath
bullet
it.
point underneath it, and our overall strategic resourcing is we would like to have a successful bond issue in February or May, whenever that.
Is it the
whatever we're
process
shooting
that
for.
you need to reflect on, or is it the projects when we get all done and we know what our number is? Is that more, because
Well, from our work session, we talked about this a long time, and we had a lot of bullets because I was typing them in. But then we came back because we decided, oh, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and assume
Right.
that the bond is going to pass.
Right. So what I heard, but this is, I guess, a good chance to
Right.
review that, right, was that we were going to have as a goal to prioritize all of these potential projects as one of the milestones. And then the second milestone was preparing for a bond referendum. And you're absolutely right, Amy, it was, well, let's not get out beyond that. But to me, then, that helps, the prioritization, as I see it, is actually our work under the first bullet
It's the
point.
bullet. So you're saying switch the two. It should be bond communication. Prioritize is our bullet point and prepare.
Actually, I would think we better prioritize first, and then that's what then moves, okay, now we've agreed this is what we prioritize to be part of the bond. The second milestone we talked about at the work session was, now let's put together a bond referendum group that will successfully
That makes
get the
sense.
vote, right?
So the first one is prioritization of the process. And then
Mhm.
Gilbert Schools and HALA have come together to.
Yeah,
So there's a flip-flop.
well, I think your first one talks about we're working on, we'll work to establish, I mean, what we're doing right now is we're establishing a strategic plan, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's the goal that we struck out a year ago, is to say, hey, we need to have a strategic plan. So in that first bullet point, we'll work to establish a strategic plan. And part of that, the big thing we'll have in September and October is prioritizing all of these different things that you guys are working on. And then a goal, that's one goal, and then the second goal would be successful bond referendum. And we did, we said, well, let's stop right there because that's a lot of work right there, but.
And then the financial transparency would just go under. part
That's its own, and we talked about that not only being as it relates to capital, but, you know, there'll be a lot of confusion out there. You're talking about shortage where we don't have enough money for curriculum, we don't have enough, but now you want to go out and do $10 or $12 million bond, how can you do that? And the community needs to very well understand that
Yep.
those are separate bins, right? So what I heard was bullet point 1 and the sub-bullet point or a milestone was the prioritization process that we will do as a team. And then the bond referendum as another milestone, and then financial transparency. So why I think that's important is, well, these are all listed under goals, right,
Mhm.
Lindsay? And so, well, let's be really clear on what our goal is. Our goal is to, as a group, be really clear on what our priorities are,
Right.
and then our goal is to have a successful bond referendum.
Yep, you're exactly right.
I think I've got it.
Any questions then on B? Can you scroll up a little bit here? Take a look at C. Do you feel good about what you see there? Does it not say what you want it to?
You have like a kind of a measurable action plan for like, for number two specifically?
That's what we talked about that as far as, you know, what is it that you want to look at? You want to make sure that you're communicating that, but what we would have to measure that, that's a very good
So
question.
we have some baseline that we sent an email out, communications
Mhm.
committee did.
That's true.
Like mid-winter, January, February maybe. That was what tools of what we listed do you use most frequently, kind of rating them. So we have that down of what our patrons use, but I think there are different avenues that we would like people to use more. So I think that would be a goal as we work with communications group and ourselves. How do we push that more? And I'm guilty of that, like the app. I always start at the beginning of the year and I'm sending push notifications like crazy, and then the year kind of goes on and I forget, or those kind of things. And I think that's one quick way to get information out to people that probably needs to be used more. So I think we could use that data to set those kind of goals and then re-survey people.
And there should have been a push notice that came out tonight. We were talking about how this all works because we've changed some people in different positions. I think some of you had said, like, not the work session, but the last regular meeting, you know, difference in time or whatever that had happened there. Tonight, did you get your notice?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we're
Twice.
twice.
I've gotten mine twice.
Want to make sure that we're getting that information out.
I think it'd be good, like helpful just to say like, hey, we want to make 3 Instagram posts per month. Or just set some really tangible, simple.
Okay.
Set some goals.
Yeah, that's a helpful way to
I think too, as we talk about professional development, I think that's something that we forget to share with our parents. You know, it's just it's an early out day, or it's whatever it is, and for a parent, it's just kind of like, what are they doing? And so, I don't think we have to go into super detail, but I think you guys do some really cool things in professional development, and if our parents and patrons know what you're doing, I think that that's a benefit.
So do you see us using, I mean,
Obviously, social media.
social media
And I
as
think
part
we-
of that?
Well, there's no reason why when you send out the reminder, you couldn't just say, hey, reminder that we have this, our teachers will be blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Even like if there was a voluntary way to have a teacher or a coach just do a short video that says, hey, we always want to continuously improve. This year I set a goal of doing this, and I went to this seminar and it was awesome. Here's how I'm going to implement it. Great.
Love that. That's a good
Just
idea.
little, just little
Yeah.
things, and then it's a
I like
good,
that.
yeah, our teachers, coaches, and administrators, everyone's growing and learning. It's great.
That's a great idea.
That would be more impactful than even the words of reading it. 'Cause
Yeah.
they
Right.
remember, oh, Mr.
Right.
Niels did a quick video on whatever.
Well, and people pay attention when it's video.
Yeah, you're right. And
And
especially
they-
if it's just a
Yep,
short little.
yep.
Yep.
Thank you, that's a good idea.
See, Sean, you have to come back next time.
Any other questions for her?
No, I think that's good, because we had similar ones this year, and I think there was a little bit of a struggle for what do you put into that form, that, you know, the updates, and those are not going to be, the other ones are going to have a lot more objective information, but I do think it'd be nice, these ideas, to then, that could be incorporated in the updates.
And then one of the things we spoke about at the planning meeting was we didn't want this year's to look like a whole different plan, because going into next spring, we're going to bring in a third-party facilitator and reset the 3 to 5 year plan. And so as a part of that, we were like, we want to have some consistency. I mean, we had really good consistency with it, but we didn't change a lot of the language and that sort of thing, and we'll be looking at that in the spring, and we'll have more stakeholder involvement as we go through the 3 to 5 year planning process. And so one of the things we also talked about at that meeting is you know, making sure we set the stage for next spring so that we communicate that, and we can kind of have a plan as to how we're going to roll into that 3 to 5 year planning in the spring. So
We'll make some adjustments and get those out to you if that's all right with the board.
yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good. Thanks, Lindsay. Administrator reports.
The only thing I've said, there isn't anything specifically that anyone's going to present to you tonight, but I did just ask if there's any of you that want to just kind of tell where you're at with, we're going to be coming back with teachers Friday, new teachers, veterans on the 21st, 24th with kids. We're excited about that. We're excited to start a new year. We got some new people in new positions. I just wanted to see if anyone wanted to kind of give an update, you know, on some of you. I know that you've had the board have a chance to tour your building and things like that, but as you're getting ready for the new year, do you have anything that you'd like to update the group on?
Things are looking good. Teachers have been back more frequently this week. It's been good to see them. They're excited. Get stuff ready.
Yeah, all our stuff's in, just a matter of getting it to everybody, and I think everybody's excited for when we are.
At the middle school, we've been working on getting that Tiger Time ready. So Mr. Billings laid out kind of a vision, and so we kind of filled in the details, and teachers have been coming up, getting trained on reading interventions and some of the other interventions that we're going to do. So just getting that in place, getting that ready to go. So.
Mike and I were able to attend the PLC conference in Minneapolis, and were able to attend it with staff, which was great. We had some representatives, and I think I had 4. Picked up a lot of great things on how to better collaborate and use data, and how to look at that to drive student achievement. And I thought that was awesome. We've actually had some staff members volunteer some time to come in and work on how we can better implement that over the next year. So pretty excited. The building looks great. The custodians did a wonderful job. And things are good.
We started practices last week for the fall high school sports going, and
We have great numbers. We have an awesome week as far as weather was concerned. And our fall kickoff is this Friday with our parent meetings, sport meetings, and our scrimmage.
Just a couple things that we're doing this week. Next week I have about 25 staff members who are going to do CPI training, which is crisis prevention. So not as much as crisis like intruder kind of thing, but with kids, when kids are in crisis, how we should handle that. So I've got, like I said, several from all 4 buildings coming. And then we also have a group of teachers who are attending Wilson training. It's a 3-day training. So if you remember, we've adopted the Foundations program for early literacy, and then we also have a Wilson piece, which is kind of like the tier 3 piece, or kind of the most intensive of that, specifically guided or geared towards students with dyslexia. And so we have
teachers from all, well, not any high school teachers, but we have teachers from all the other 3 buildings that are attending that 3-day training.
It's been helpful to the group that has been working with the dyslexia training and things like that, just to keep the communication back and forth with the parents and things like that, so that's been a good thing. Just something to add, a couple quick things. Jason has these other things in, but he's been part of getting, I think in Vic's building, the Chromebooks. There's a new fleet that's coming out for high school. Those will be ready to go day 1, is that right? They also have in Stacy's building, with the help of our foundation, we have iPads, I believe. Is that right, Stacy?
Correct.
That will be coming. How many do you have that are coming in there?
90.
90. Again, great help from our foundation. And then Carrie has been a part of, with the elementary and intermediate principal, the curriculum for language arts that you are putting into place.
Yeah, we have new curriculum. K-5, we have a reading comprehension component that's called Making Meaning. We have a writing component that's called Being a Writer. And then, like Stacy said, we have K2, the foundations, that is the phonics piece. What we decided not to do was go with a whole encompassing reading program, because that wasn't going to meet the needs of our kids. And we know that a big program, though it looks flashy and it has all the bells and whistles, there's always going to be components to it that are not strong. And so through our vetting process, we came down to those materials, and we have PD on Tuesday morning. The teachers have, we've used some curriculum dollars to, we've had teams of teachers that have been coming in and working, looking through the program and kind of making their, putting their scope and sequence together. Then we have PD next Tuesday morning that is going to kind of go over the whole program in general, the 2 programs, and any questions that the teachers have at that point, and then we'll have PD built in throughout the year too. So the part that we liked about the Making Meaning and the Being a Writer is built into the program is a, I don't want to say socialization piece, but there is this piece, this communication piece that you don't see in a lot of cases and a lot of the programs that we've looked at, where it's got that piece in of really how kids should be communicating about what they're doing. So I know Christy Danielson, she, in 5th grade last year, she did a little bit with it. She piloted it a little bit just to see how it felt, and just going in there and listening to the kids and, okay, I heard you say blah, 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 blah. Did I hear that right? And then how do you talk about complex text? So I would encourage you, if you want to come in throughout the year, let us know, and we'd love to get you in and see what our kids are doing with us.
Just another quick thing, we've kind of taken 2 people off the at-risk guidance portion of it, but I know that they're still working on the mental health first aid. I believe that they're going to have something short that they will be presenting at one of the opening days that we come back, but then there's also going to be an actual professional development that's planned. Do you guys know the date of that?
It's December.
Okay.
I think it's either December early dismissal day.
And that we were able to do, again, I go back to the help that we get from the different groups. That was the PTO, I believe, with the, was it bingo for mental health first aid?
We didn't give it a title just so that we don't stigmatize it.
Yeah. But that was the PTO, right?
That was PTO.
Thank you.
There's also, maybe Vic can speak to it, I wasn't part of that, but there's also planning a community night this fall.
Right. They're planning to raise more awareness on mental health issues and how we can better support our students. So they're actually planning a night where they're going to have a keynote speaker that's going to talk about mental health in our youth and kind of the current trends that are going on. And then they're actually going to offer some breakout sessions for our community members and parents. So if they want to learn a little more about depression and anxiety and how it affects students, they can go to that. If they want to learn about suicide prevention, or if they want to learn about self-harm or different topics that face the youth in our society, they can go there and get a little better informed. So I think that's an awesome opportunity for our parents to realize that this is a huge concern in society and in our communities.
What was the target date on that, or general timeline?
I don't know right offhand because I've kind of stepped away a little bit, but
I think it was October 26th.
Yeah,
It's
on the calendar.
It's on the
I have to look
calendar.
it up. But I think they've targeted to have a keynote speaker and then have 2 or 3 rounds of breakout sessions, 20, 25 to 30 minutes at a time. So parents can choose 2 or 3 of them to go to. And also have some booths out where local providers can have information available for parents if they want to gather more information to pursue counseling and things and other opportunities on their own. So.
Yeah, 6:30 to 8:30 on the Thursday, October 26th.
Thank you.
The last piece on that, I think, is a group of us went down to there's a Iowa School Mental Health conference in October, and a group of us went down last year, and I think all of the counselors, as well as at risk, I'm hoping to go. I think that maybe was hoping to go down again.
Yeah, they've already, some of them, they're already
So
registered.
it was really good to hear from practitioners, but also school personnel on ways to intervene with mental health issues in school. So it was really good, a good conference.
Anything else you guys would like to add? We're excited about the new year starting off. Can't wait.
So one question all the way back to the 1-to-1. That's a 3-year rotation, is that right? And do you recall what did Chromebooks cost the first go round and what did they cost this time, just in general? I'm just curious.
They are roughly the same price. Now you get a whole lot more technology for the same price, but I mean it's
$250 or what were they?
Yeah. Back, but
just round numbers.
260
Yeah.
around there by the time you get the case and the Chromebook and the license and everything else.
So it's holding, because when we established that, we had no idea which direction it was going to go. Okay.
And Jason is a bargain shopper on that, man. He'll look at every area that we can and try to make sure that we get the best bang for the buck. Thank you.
Announcements and celebrations.
You guys got anything for announcements or celebrations? I know we talked a lot of things starting off, but anything in particular?
We have to do an end of the year TLC report to the state, and that's due at the end of June. And so we got ours back, and we were given an exemplar rating that they would like to use our reporting, the way that we've reported out as exemplar models for other districts.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Carrie deserves a round of applause for that. Anything else you'd like to have for announcements or celebrations?
Board reports.
Yeah, and we have I talked to, John was on, has been on vacation, and I talked to Sam. He said if it was all right with the group, and I think I maybe talked to you, John, just if we had just the report that they didn't have a representative here tonight. What they try to do, I think, and they do a good job of taking us through what we're looking at doing and what has happened. Again, I'm not going to read each and everything, but I do know that, again, I know that some of you know this, but the board took the time the other night to go around to 2 of the buildings, and their plans is to go around to the other 2 buildings just to look and see what we're talking about and what are some of the things that need to happen. but you can take a look at it. There's Stacy's building that they're talking about right off the top. And, you know, what are some of the things that we'll be looking at as far as that secure entry? I think that she showed you that the other night when we're looking at that. Again, you can scroll down there. I don't want to necessarily, like I said, read it. In Amy's building, again, they take a look at that HVAC. You know, that's going to be some of the things that we're focusing on. And again, people have asked about if we're having second rounds. We are having second rounds, and if there's people that want to be involved in that, they can sure let us know, or there'll be people that will be invited to, that we're in the first round to talk over some of these things as far as the second round meetings. But you can take a look at the things. Let's see, what was the one that I hadn't talked to you? Band and vocal improvements. Did they talk much about that to you, Amy?
Yeah, we talked briefly about it. It has never been on my radar or conversations with them. It came from Fine Arts Group, and I have never heard any feedback from either of my teachers of needs from that, so discuss that.
In Mike's building, the middle school, the things are moving forward with the CenturyLink. I think that we have one on tonight, is that right, for that to be moved? I know that some of you have asked, and I've asked for the history, and once I know when that was put into place, I will let you know. So I think it's just an FYI, just a food for thought type of thing. Let's see. So in his building, looking at just some different things, and again, the plan is, I think Mike's group might be, his group might be in September when that meets. I think he said the 6th was a possible date for you, Mike. So that, not everything's been confirmed yet. Again, I think on the last one they showed some different sketches as far as some possibilities, and they talked to you about some classrooms. Is that correct?
Yeah, classrooms, adding on the vestibule for the gym and the fitness room.
Okay.
Big things.
And then Vic, in the high school, let's see what we got you for here. I know that we've talked about a number of different things, and you know, some of that was in our fine arts. We got a great problem. We got big numbers and how we're going to handle that, and some of those. They did say that they had a chance to review with Mr. Billings at that time and Vic, and trying to get kind of an idea for that. They're also, I believe, meeting with the ag group and seeing where we're at with that. So, Vic, anything you want to add to that?
No, at the last meeting, he had mock-ups for about 4 different options at each area we were looking at, and I mean, they have some interesting design options, and there's some really creative ways to do some open spaces where you can make it large spaces, and then you can open and close doors to make it into smaller spaces. And it looked like there were some small offices upstairs that could be utilized in a variety of ways. And same thing for the VOTEC area and for the band and choir area. There was 3 or 4 different options in each area, and varying prices, of course. But looks like it's going to be just an awesome addition.
Sure. Tim, I don't want to leave you out. I know that you had a chance to meet, and we'll have another chance to meet with either John or Sam, or maybe both. And I know that they're talking about just some of the different things. Anything that you want to share there of anything in particular?
Well, we have just lined out a set of priorities and different uses for the fields north of the middle school as an example. Okay. And then when we meet again, we're supposed to be making sure we've got the same priorities set up for that, and then moving forward with that. And there's, again, our hope is moving baseball and softball over. If that doesn't happen, then where do we go from there? And then the use of that field over there, what different things can we do based on where that priority comes to. So,
okay.
I feel really good about what we did in July, and I think we'll be set.
Thank you. Proposed schedule. I think that the majority of those building principals and AD are going to be meeting, I would say, sometime between the 7th. I think the 17th is a big day for you guys. I think that almost 3 of you have that, and I think that maybe Vic has the 21st. But those are the one-to-ones, so that they're a chance to meet with that specific building principal. And then during that week of the 28th through the I don't know why I thought that said the 6th, so I could be wrong, Mike. We maybe have to check that. I thought that.
He did say he could do the 6th or the 7th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So the big thing was that we would go ahead and put those in there with the group meetings. They're going to come back to the board, of course, on the 18th. This will be an in-person. And then October 2nd, we talked about that, was a work session. Everyone have that on their calendar? Does that work for everyone? That's pretty important. And then the 9th, we come back with an official meeting for October 9th. John and Sam do a nice job of putting this information together. One of the things that the board has asked that I try to do is I try to communicate this out to the public. I'm not going to rewrite it, because if I rewrite it, I may say something that isn't what they want to have said. So I take this information and I shoot it out through school messenger so that our staff knows it and all of our patrons know it.
You didn't get much feedback from staff and patrons at all?
No, but you know, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
I think it's important, though, if you feel the need to add some notes,
Okay.
just like here, the comments that Amy made about the fine arts portion, that
Yes.
she hadn't had that communication. I think it's very important as we move forward towards a bond that we don't have patrons that think we're working towards something that may not be a priority.
Yep.
So
That's a good point.
I would encourage you
To add
to
something.
add little asterisks
Okay.
and throw in your notes
Mhm.
along with this. I think it's important, though, that they see this, especially not only that, but the piece about not being able to enhance the safe entry at Stacy's building. You know, because it's something we talked a lot about in the beginning, and it's very clear in here that it's not financially responsible. If you scroll back up.
I think one of the options, right? I mean, it's still in
It'll
there.
still,
It's,
Yeah, I
just
think
the
there's.
new part, they're not building a new
Right,
part.
but
it'll still
it's
be
clear
secure.
here that it's not financially responsible to do like a big,
Oh,
Yeah.
add-on.
right,
It's a
right.
modification.
And we have a lot of parents that you know would like that enhancement. So let's just keep communicating as much as we
that would
can.
be bad.
Yeah.
That's a good, go ahead.
I guess to that point, this last round of group meetings, I guess my question would be, what's the plan to communicate that? And would you want to open that up for anybody that wants to be there, just so that, to your point, it helps with, okay, this is where this is what it's looking like, and it's an opportunity to, again, communicate. But
Well, I think what might be nice at those meetings is, you know, if we are opening it up to anybody who wants to come, kind of making sure whether it's Sam or John leading that meeting at the time,
Sure.
communicating like, this isn't necessarily the time for open, like,
Right.
we kind of brainstormed a lot at
Yeah.
the beginning meeting, maybe
Yeah.
to bring you up to speed, and now from here, what we have move forward is.
Would it be possible to record these meetings, the small group meetings, so that if people are interested but can't participate, or if we don't necessarily want to start from square one, like Stacy's saying, people could go on and view the discussion that's being had?
Jason?
Is it a lot of work, or?
I think it's important, so we can make it happen.
Okay.
And I think what you've heard some of the board members say here is it's important that we make sure that everyone knows what's going on. We want to make sure if we're going to go out for a bond that you know exactly what's happening and that there aren't any questions there. When John put out a letter to us, and one of the things that the administrators asked was, are we looking at having the same group, or are we looking at, you know, doing whatever? And they said, yes, the same group could be in there, but it could be open to, you know, so let's say that someone says, you know, I just moved into the district and I'd like to be on that elementary one. I hear there's a lot of things that they're going to be doing there. Those would be the type of things that you could add there. And I know that Stacy was under the gun on the first one, so I think if you remember, she was under the gun because what we did was we had spring break, was it? And we came right back, and you had your first meeting right off the bat. So as we're looking at these, hopefully we'll have an opportunity. One of the things that they're doing is they're working with us. We're going to start those meetings, I believe, at 5:30 to accommodate hopefully working people. Does that accommodate them, or should I think that's what we tried to do last time, and we want to make sure that we have people there. Comments?
Question? So is there somewhere where parents can go for a summary of what's happened where we're at?
Yes, it's on the website.
So there's like a, that's what I'm saying, to kind of like, so that people aren't starting from scratch and asking questions that have already been asked. Is that like explained somewhere?
From like these I put
Yeah.
out,
Okay.
you surely read my emails, don't you?
I do read your email. I'm just saying.
I'm kidding, yeah,
The
I-
questions that have been asked, I mean, is there like a, we did this, and this is where we're
Or
at?
what about our
So people know where they're
public
joining
forum
in,
presentations?
what phase they're joining in.
Good point, Tyler.
So what I see is the district on the Gilbert website under school board minutes, there is district staff and patron forums, long-term facility plan. So it says, and these basically I think are the minutes from the bigger meetings as opposed to the group meetings. But it says who was at every meeting that were,
Is the presentation attached?
the forum can be viewed, it's a YouTube, it's a video.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I recorded those, the
Yeah.
staff one, the public ones, most of them.
Right.
I don't know if the presentation is.
Now, did we sell you the rights to that?
Checks in the mail, Tyler.
Yeah. Goes right along with the school board pay, yeah. The other thing would maybe just put the PowerPoint with it too. I mean, just the information so somebody could scroll through and say, oh, I see, this was phase 1, this was phase 2.
It looks like it'd be really easy to link to the
Yeah.
existing link.
The presentation was changed between the two forums too.
Yeah.
There was an incorrect graphic or something, so.
Yeah, so use the last one.
Does that answer your question though about
Yes.
what you're looking
Yes,
at?
it does, thank you.
Yeah, can I add one thing?
Yes, sir.
We've recorded 2 presentations given by Hala and friends. Those can both be made, maybe publicized more. They're recorded on YouTube still.
They're on the website.
They're on the website, but maybe
They are?
we need
Okay,
to make them a little more front and center.
Because I can see them on Brian's page. I know I saw them on Brian's.
Well, and what might be more helpful, I mean, if you didn't want that level of detail, is as school gets started and you're in pretty large forums, I think it would be good to, hey, here's an update on what's going on at your building. We don't know for sure how the funding priority is going to work, but this is kind of where the planning process is at. And, you know, when we have the welcome for the school starting, that would be another good stage to say, hey, here's where the 10-year planning is going on for facilities. And
There you go, Brian.
kind of work that whole, Brian's giving me the thumbs up, so just kind of work that whole communication thing so that we can really start building a lot of awareness of where we're at in the process. All right, that sounds good. Any other questions on the 10-year plan? All right, that sounds good. Old business, second reading for policies. Any of those that you would like to?
I would like to go to, especially, and I think it's ones that we talk about a lot. I would like to go to the internet, the network and internet policies. What I wanted to make sure of is, first of all, you understand that IASB, Iowa Association of School Boards, comes out with model policies. But I wanted to make sure that this was something, and the administrative team is probably getting tired of me bringing this to them because I've done it 2 or 3 or 4 times or whatever. And I've also talked to Jason about it because of the technology portion of his job. This is what would be proposed, and she has the changes that were made here, doesn't she?
There's some striped, yeah, at the bottom.
Yeah, if you can see right there, as far as the situation that we have is, we at one time used to go ahead and have the parent, we used to kind of run around and try to have the parents sign those slips. That is something that we put out there that's understood now. It's kind of an understood portion of that. And what we do is we make sure that the student handbook is available online, because I think that you guys are going to be talking about that coming up here. And that it's regarding the regulations that you will have within the internet use, and the students are expected to comply. You keep going. There was one, hold on, there it is, use of an email account other than the district provided account is prohibited. I think Jason and I had a discussion on that, and we said that, you know, that was one of the things that probably, if we're going to try to do that, I don't know that we can necessarily with the way things are, so that was one that we'd strike out. And again, it's just not Jason and I that's having the conversation. It's put out there to the entire group. If you want to keep scrolling, if you would. That's what they sign off on, by the way.
I don't see any other strikeouts.
Okay.
What
The
would
last
be-
one is, it should have been highlighted. Whoops. Can you go back, please? One of the things that we talked about a lot administratively is the fact that the consequences for violating the guidelines. And I think that what we're looking at is that first offense is going to be a warning. The second offense is basically suspended for an amount of time determined by the administrator. I don't know, if it's going to be in Stacy's building, if it's going to be something that might be a little bit different than maybe in Vic's building. And I'm not saying that we're going to have, there's just different levels of what they're going to be using there. So that's something that we would be looking at. And I know that at one time, I think we had like 28 days, and I don't know what the other one was, and they said, no, wait a minute, we don't do that. So I said, well, what do we do? And this is what we do, so this is what we're going to put down. You okay with that, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a fantastic and like a good stab at really thinking well about how to teach kids on the internet, how to encourage our staff to do the right thing. The one question I have is, this is all sort of school provided internet and computers. What about the students bringing their own internet with cell phone data plans and those sort of things? Does this policy also pertain to them?
That's a good question. If you get someone that's on their cell phone and they're violating this,
While on school property.
While on school
right? I'm
property.
assuming that's what you're referring to.
I'm not saying we have to solve it tonight, but that's a case that seems to be sort of not covered by a number of these policies. I think this still governs our expectation, but we have zero way to monitor a lot of of sort of own devices, own internet connections, and something we should probably be thinking about.
that's a good point.
Well, and we do address it to a point because we do have student discipline issues that come up related to cell phone issues where kids are doing things on Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. We do address that and we kind of address it case by case. I know Mike has an occasional one, as does Amy, I'm sure. But we do look at those case by case. It's a challenge with more kids bringing more devices. It's definitely something to consider in the future. But definitely we do address issues as they come up and on an individual basis based on the severity and the situations and the factors involved. So.
And I would say those consequences differ from what we've outlined here, just because that usually is going to turn into something else. Like it's a bullying situation or just a peer conflict, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is, they are not using our technology that we've given them correctly.
Right.
That's what Brian's referring to. It has happened and it will probably continue to happen, but we address that differently.
Jason, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to echo what Amy said is, that's under like the code of conduct, that, we don't have harassment or defamatory or anything like that. So, I think that would be covered under our code of conduct.
Is that something that maybe in the future we need to think about adding as a policy? Sort of the words that I heard from the back administrative table, sorry you can't all see me, sounds really good, and I just wonder if we need to kind of codify that in some policy somewhere. Outside of just the code of conduct.
It's in the bullying and harassment policy.
You didn't hear. Go ahead, Stacy. Say it again.
I believe it's in the bullying and harassment policy.
On that bullying and harassment policy, I
Yeah,
think it's
that's
covered in
awesome.
there. We can look and see if it isn't. We can look to add something. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Are the administrators comfortable with the guidelines for violating for the offenses? It says warning, suspended for amount of time is determined. I mean, I don't know how often that happens, but if you flip it around and not this issue, but issues with alcohol and stuff, it's had to have been pretty clear, right? Because people would say, well, they got treated differently.
Yeah.
So just curious, maybe this isn't something that comes up very much, but are you comfortable with it being that open as far as the discipline?
The hard thing that we found at middle school is a second offense can be so different and having a hard and fast rule that is an automatic 28 days, which when you're a one-to-one school, that's an entire month where, you know, they're just not getting the same thing that everyone else is getting. And so it really depends on what that second offense was. And so that's kind of the way that it's been handled in our building, is just based off of what the event is, how severe it is. So I feel comfortable with it.
How do the rest of you feel with that portion of it? Because you're going to be the ones that are going to be the enforcers.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Nope, you can go ahead.
Well, you know, another thing that Jason, I know, is really good at is using our Go Guardian and some of our other software that we use that's monitoring what kids are doing already. And we can be proactive and have those conversations with kids in advance before things get too far. Last year we did do a little bit of testing with a Google app, a Google process that flagged keywords like harm, student harm, or they mentioned suicide, or they mentioned hurting themselves. It allowed us to be a little more proactive with our conversations. So I think having the flexibility, I do understand what you're saying, that it does make it a little, if I treat your son one way, treat yours a different way, you know, there is a little bit of a question there. But I think you also have to take into consideration that we do due diligence and we follow through with things and we investigate that to a proper level. When we first looked at it, we had ranging of, you know, one of them was up to like 90 days. That's a whole, it's a big chunk of the school year to be out of technology. And it just puts kids at an academic disadvantage. Although we do need to send a message to kids that are not using it in a correct way. We need to have some flexibility, I think. That's just my thoughts.
Someone else wanted to say something there?
No, I'll echo. I'm kind of fortunate at my level. Once they get that warning, that's a pretty clear message. It doesn't usually go past that.
Well, I'd just say as long as you're comfortable, or I think we need to revisit it if you got feedback of, hey, kids are getting treated differently for the same issues, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Or just be mindful of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Any other policy comments?
No.
Entertain a motion to approve those policies.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Stands approved. New business. Contiguous districts with route buses.
Yeah, this is something we do annually. If there's we're not allowing necessarily someone to come into our district and pick up, but if it's a shorter cut to go through our district to get to their pickup, we allow that. So you've done it each year, and I would recommend you continue.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Stands approved. Okay, the IEP open enrollment agreement.
Right, we have a situation where we have a student that open enrolls to from our district to a neighboring district, and they require a special.
I just had a cough, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Okay. They require some specialized transportation, and we've allowed that to them to come into our district for this. Just want to make you aware of it. We've done it for a number of years, and would recommend we continue to do that.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Stands approved. DMAX Drive Academy agreement.
Yeah, I'm learning more about DMAX Drive Academy than I ever thought I would. What we're doing is DMAX Drive Academy is where we have a situation where there might be a student that, and there's a contract that you can see up there. What happens is the student does not necessarily graduate. They continue on with their education through what's called DMAX Drive Academy. And this is a contract. This is the first year, I believe, Vic, is that right, that we've done this? I think that we've done Strive before, so you guys probably seen that. This is a standard contract that we would have with DMAC. I've had our AEA look at it too to make sure that we're not promising that we can't, something that we can't do. The thing that I have, I'll just be, Gail and I talked about it, and I talked about it with Christy Upa. We're not putting necessarily names in there. We might have put initials because I don't think that we want to share anything off an IEP that should not be shared in a public setting. this is something that I think is an excellent opportunity. We do this with, like I said, this is the first one for the Strive Academy. We've done it with the, do you know how many we got for the Strive? 2, 3?
I think just 2,
Okay.
all I understand.
So we recommend approval of this.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Is that Tyler second?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Stands approved. Handbooks.
Here we go.
What should we do first?
It doesn't matter.
I don't have any significant changes at all in my handbook, pretty much just some wordsmithing. Every time I proofread it, I find word mistakes, so. That's what it is.
Everything's pretty much the same,
Yeah,
Stacy?
no
Do
How
you
about-
give new teachers a quiz on it, or how does that work? Or
Yeah.
They get the,
I love when you can, the teacher will say something and you're like, yeah, that is in our handbook.
what does the handbook? Oh, yeah.
I'm the same, I only updated my staff list on that next page, everything else stayed the same.
Anything else to add there? Is Mike up next?
Only, I mean, a couple things, just name changes, obviously, from, Hope Bossard was still in there, so I had to take that out, and it's replacing Chris with me. I deleted 2 things off of there that were back on page 9, policies that we no longer do, an iPod card to use technology. We no longer use and haven't for a couple years, and then we used to give kids planners, and they had passes in the back, and we haven't done that for several years, and so that needed to come out as well. So no additions, just taking a couple things out to reflect current practice.
Anything else, Mike?
No.
Okay. Vic?
All right, there were a few changes added. The biggest change was the changing of the schedule. We went to a new schedule that makes our Wednesdays and Thursdays match up exactly. So that was nice. We had different schedules. We ran on a Wednesday and a Thursday. Now our schedules look exactly the same on Wednesdays and Thursdays, which is nice. It moves Success Center to the end of the day on Thursday, which is nice because that's typically a day where kids are gone and they don't have to miss academic time during that part of the day. It also allows seniors to have open campus, which allows that privilege with the opportunities of expanding that to the juniors in the future. But that was a schedule change that was accepted in the spring, so that's, it's just reflecting a new schedule in the handbook. Let's see, what else? Open campus, I just explained that a little bit. One of our school leadership team, the policies and procedures looked at how we take online classes and what qualifies for being able to take an online class. There were some adjustments made to that. And the other big one was if a student failed a class, how they could go about earning credit by retaking the class. There were several options that were presented. And there were a couple word changes in the electronic devices section, but other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot of changes made. The electronic devices was basically, it said they must be turned off all day. That's not real reasonable. I'm not going to go around and police 460 kids, make sure they have their phones off and in their cars. It honors them to be able to use their cell phones during passing time and at lunch. I think that seems reasonable. And other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of changes put in.
Okay, that covers it.
Any questions on the handbook from board members?
I have the employee handbook
Employee
here.
one, yeah.
Just, we've never had a table of contents before, so I suggested that we have one. It's just easier to locate things, especially if you don't know where it's at. So we have a table of contents here. And then, let's see. We tried to update the board policy. We're still working on the board policy, reflecting in where we're discussing that in these. And I think we have what we have to date, but I think that is just still, we need to continue looking at that, especially since we're going through board policy right now. So right now, I guess what I'm saying is it's the best of it right now. I think it's just something we continually work on. And then the next thing that is, We've added a return to work policy, and let's see, there's no pages. I need to make sure there's.
That was at the suggestion of our safety committee that we have been.
We need page numbers on here. I noticed they're missing, but anyway, yeah, our work comp company has suggested that we have a return to work program. So we've added that language in there under return to work, under the employee injury on the job. So then we have, the next change is under catastrophic leave option. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had when that subject was brought up. We've implemented it and then it's put it in here. So now it's documented. So we've included that. And the other item that we've included is, or updated, there was a change on, it was incorrect information under benefits. It was a category, it was a benefit for life insurance, which was not correct information on the list of the coverage of life insurance. So that's been updated under benefits. And then the other change that we made is the, we had continuing education requirement for, we addressed it for bus drivers, that because of the CDL, we had to, there was information on that in here. But actually our cooks are under about the same, not the same, but for nutrition employees, they have professional standards that they have to have now. And so in order to meet that, we included that in on the continuing education to make it similar of the bus drivers. If we're expecting the bus drivers to do that, we included the school nutrition personnel, that they get paid for their time off and we pay for the registration fees just like we do for the bus drivers. So we addressed that in this continuing education requirement. And we try to address that any trainings that's required, that is paid time, just to be consistent. It was here and there, depending on what. So, and it's all the, we try to highlight everything in yellow if there was a change. That's it for that.
So just one, I guess, question or comment, and it probably pertains, Tim, mostly to athletics, but there's a portion in the handbook regarding abusive or offensive language, and occasionally that will occur, and I think you've done a nice job in the past of handling that, but just when that comes up, if we as a board or you or others hear about that a coach, I mean, can you talk a little bit, or do you do some prep with the coaches that they're aware of that?
It's one of the things on my agenda for next Monday when I meet with the coaches. I have no defense for that. I mean, if that's what you do when you're coaching, I have no defense for that. So we'll just start doing write-ups with that, and then start. But I mean, it's going to go a lot quicker as far as me being able to say, you just don't fit in here if that's the way you're going to coach. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be great just to set clear expectations.
Yes.
And you know, it's right here in the handbook, so
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's no problem. I'll just copy that off and they can have a copy of that, make sure they understand that.
Mm-hmm. Good, thanks.
Yep.
Any further discussion on the handbooks? Entertain a motion to approve those changes?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. Okay, the CenturyLink agreement.
I think you guys are well aware of what we're talking about here. I think John had presented this. Want to keep things moving in a fashion. As we're looking over at that middle school with that easement where it's at, if we're going to try to do something to the south, we're going to be pinned. So this is for moving it, the $23,353.78. I will tell you that there may be some this is to get the ball rolling, this is to do the work for our CenturyLink, that when you do an easement, there may be a public hearing that we have to have with it. But I think what I'm asking, or what we are asking you to do is to approve this so that we can have the option if we want to do something in that building.
The number on the agenda is not the same
Oops.
as the number on the
The
contract.
one on the contract is the one we
Yeah.
want to count.
28.
Yep,
50.
yep, it says 23 on the
See,
minutes.
Kim, I thought that
Or
was
not
my
the
eye.
minutes, but the agenda. No, sorry. I was just kind of, there's a lot of different numbers.
28,353.
Yeah, and on the agenda, it says 23,353.
Oh, my goodness.
Just so, if anyone was
So
looking
can you go back to the
online.
contract, just so that we're all on the same page?
Yeah,
It
it's
is
on the contract.
28,
Yep,
28, 353, 78.
Thank you.
yep.
Entertain a motion to approve the contract. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just want to state, I agree fully with moving forward on this, and I think based upon Hayla's initial assessment of where we can best expand the middle school, I think that's why we're doing this. So it's good.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Brian, did I
Brian?
aye, aye, you?
Aye.
Thumbs up,
Sorry, I'm
thumbs
good.
up.
Okay.
All opposed? Stands approved. Thank you. And the consent agenda.
Nope, still got one of those.
Oh, missed one. Football field. All right.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit, then I'm going to let someone that has had more involvement in this than I have talk about it. When we built the stadium and the locker room addition, one of the things that we have north of the stadium is an area where they do shot put and disc, but that was supposed to be a football practice field, and it was supposed to be a soccer practice field. And it has never, to my knowledge, been able to be used in that way because of the fact that we had the general contractor come back in and they tried to reseed it and split seed it and all kinds of seeding, and they tried watering, and it just it's terrible. It reminds you probably when you were, I don't know if you grew up on a farm, but if you walked out in a pasture, it's something that you twist your ankle on if you were walking in it. And the thing about it is that Tim and I have had the conversations about the fact of that when we're looking at space, and he's trying to say, okay, soccer, where can you go? If we got the track going on at the stadium, it presents a problem because we've got the track going on over here, and where do we go with them, and also being able to use it for football. So Tim, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been able to bring about here?
What our plan is, what we had bid by the two different contractors, is basically taking stripping the entire grass off of it, installing an irrigation system, and then seeding it in two different directions and watering it this fall, staying off of it this fall. The hope is if we get a good growing season, which, drought we don't have to worry about because we'll have irrigation, but as long as it grows the way it's supposed to, doesn't get too cool too soon, hopefully next spring we'll be able to use it. If that is the case, then we'll be able to have soccer practice going on. We'll also, we have to configure it just the right way, but we'll have a discus practice being able to be going on at the same time. Right now, soccer, if they're going to use grass, they're going to have to use an intermediate field over here, which we also have the middle school track practice going on here, or the fields north of the middle school, which aren't much better, in all honesty, and Sean, you can probably attest to that. But what it will do then is allow us a little more flexibility in where we can have some practices, and the high school soccer teams can get on the grass right there at the high school, which would be great. The other thing with our discus areas, because of the clumps of grass and then patches of dirt, if it rains too much when we're trying to host a track meet, and
It's bad.
attest, yeah,
It's very bad.
it gets really muddy, and we have to go up to the north ring if it's okay. So it would be an awesome thing for us to get done, and a safety issue when you talk about kids not practicing at the same time with track, soccer, and also with just kids rolling ankles on clumps of grass. So.
I think it's great. I know we've met and talked about different options for creating field space, and this is a lot cheaper than a lot of those other options.
Yeah, and it really is, and honestly, that surprised me when it came at that. So
it's a great location as well.
We've got two quotes here, it looks like.
Correct.
Are they apples to apples, Tim?
yes, I had Joshua Thompson is one of our parents who works for the Ames Rec and Park and does all their sod work stuff. He said that it was. It wasn't at first.
Okay.
I had to go back and have Iowa Athletic Field rebid.
Okay.
So now they are.
So you
Recommend approval,
proposing
yes, I think.
the cutting edge?
Yes, yes, sir.
Make a motion on that?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Stands approved.
Bill, what's the total amount?
Can you scroll? Yeah.
$42,325.
42, 325. And the other bid was
Up at the top.
53,518.
This is out of Pebble.
One just added practice thing, since we're talking about that. Our middle school football teams will be practicing over here at the intermediate field because it has irrigation and is a lot better shape. Again, the fields north of the middle school, which are part of our 10-year plan to get those things under control. But I think we're going to, because the Eagles aren't on there anymore and their stuff is all still in that concession stand storage area, we're going to go ahead and move that and put our middle school stuff in there, and they're going to practice over here.
Consent agenda. Any items we want to pull off the consent agenda besides the financial?
Anybody want the minutes? Anybody want to?
I didn't see
That looked right to me.
The bills, I was going to review, I'm going to go on to bills unless somebody has. Okay. The bills, so on the bills, I wanted to point out this the FFA supplies, that's regarding the building. So I wanted to point that out. And so then we're going to go down to general fund. And of course the top ones are for payroll. And then you have this 94 to Roland Story and 84 to Ames, and then you have Ankeny at 31, Western Des Moines at 28, Woodward at 16, and Des Moines Public is down here at 86. And so then, and then we have the Cedar Rapids for about 1577 over here. So, Tyler, regarding your question about, you know, our solvency ratio, of those that I pointed out, those total $265,993, which is 30% of our total bills that are here right now. So that's, you're talking some big bills that only come in twice a year, which is we bill in January and we bill in June, and so then it takes 60 days to get them.
And that's paying in arrears then?
Yes, we're paying for. So basically we're paying for tuition as of June 30th. So those big ticket items make a big difference. But then also keep in mind that we are getting revenue too that is equated into that ratio.
Right, so if we've got 200,000 in open enrollment out bills, we should actually have more than that in because our number is positive, correct?
Yeah, also special ed.
So
This is also
special ed is weighted
too.
differently. And most of these look like they were special ed.
With the exception
Yep.
of Roland Story.
Yep.
And are
So
we
most
still
of
waiting
them.
to receive ours then?
As of right now, we had to, I'm waiting on, see, I received some that would be recorded in August, the August activity. And then I'm waiting for Boone, which is about 10 to 15,000. Then we're done.
Okay. So
Yeah, yeah. We are still waiting on revenue for state programs, like federal programs, Title, Perkins, and some of the state funds have not been released yet. So the goal is to close the books 60 days after June 30th, so it'll be all of 60 days. The state is really lagging on getting the funds out.
So those haven't been released, but those will still be considered in last year's.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then the solvency could still.
It's still a moving target, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll update that ratio until it becomes the final number, which will be after the CAR is filed. So then, And then the financial report. So the first thing I want to point out is the cash balances. And you'll see how minimal activity for revenues for a lot of this is. It's more expenditures at this point than revenues, but it all depends on the timing of our revenues and our receipts and our expenditures. So, so what I have said in here about the cash balances as of July 31st, general fund and local option both have increased cash balances compared to a year ago. The management fund cash balance reflects the yearly insurance premium, and that is just basically a timing. Last year we did not pay our premium until August. This year we paid it in July. So you can definitely see it when you're comparing the cash balance compared to a year ago. But we'll receive, if you remember last time when we talked about, we will have a decrease in insurance premium. So that'll be nice when we compare that to the difference of the previous year. And then the comparison of published budget, we have one month of 12 months down. So not really much to report here because it's just 1 month. But I did want to do the general fund comparison as of, just to give you kind of where we're at. But this is low because we pay out our July and August salaries into June 30th. We accrue them. So these salary and benefits right here is only things that are only a few employees and some of our non-contract employees, so very little is happening in the salaries and benefits. And then here I kind of wanted to do pick out a few things as I see them and just point out, but just to give you an idea of what Gilbert provides in extra opportunities for tuitions to local area education. LEA is local education agencies, community colleges, secondary tuitions, and then open enrollment tuition to other school districts. We also break the above down into whether it's a regular instruction, special instruction, as in special ed, or vocational programs. So I just thought you get some good information.
What's the per pupil, just for regular education, what's the per pupil number now? Is it 65?
66.
66.
Yeah. 65, it might be easier, but 65.
So 12 or 13 more students this year to pay for open enrollment than last year. It looks like there's an $83,000, actually $132,000.
And this is only expenses, so
right.
If we get them in, it's with the revenue. But I just wanted to break it down so you could see some of the opportunities of some of these big ticket items and the opportunities that our students have. And then the PEPL, I have, these are not final numbers, but it's final as of the end of June, but you know, the books aren't closed yet. So at this point we have a carryover of 591,205, which is about the same as last year. Last year was 600. This year we're at 591, but that's not a firm number, but it's an estimated as of the time that I did it for the board report. And then we went ahead and for 2017-18, we projected the expenditures. There were some areas based on some of the things that the board has approved for projects. We needed to increase some of these areas, but this is what the 17-18 projected expenditures are. And then, let me reduce this down. So as of July 31st, there's some expenditures in there. And the PEPL expenditures include some of the major, are our yearly software licenses and renewals. As you can see, it's $25,000 in just 1 month, but July 1st is a big renewal time. And then we also finished our middle school, intermediate, and elementary school parking lot project, which was $14,200. And we purchased a bus for $98,210. And the parking lot resurfacing and striping was $25,500. So now we're working on things you approved for the landscaping projects. So some of those expenses you'll see in August. And as we're talking about this, I don't know if you remember, we were talking to Travis and he said, you know, if we could start moving some of the expenses to the capital projects, or we call save money, the 1 cent sales tax. So the land that the 4 acres, we used save to get that out of the Pebble, because we can bond some Pebble differently than we can save. And the other thing I was thinking of is this $28,000, the CenturyLink. My theory is, okay, it's for a future project again, so I would see that would be something we could take out of the save. And then probably this football field would be, we're taking the other landscaping things out of Pebble. So thinking, well, that's probably going to be a Pebble expense. Save and Pebble, the expenses basically are, the rules are the same. So it's a matter of how we really want to, and I've been thinking of basically for future projects, you save. Something that maybe, so that's the logical sense that I'm making out of it, unless you guys have something different, you know, in your thinking.
But Travis says there's a benefit to bonding against Pebble versus save.
Yeah, we have more flexibility in Pebble than we do save. So that's why, you know, it's just basically shifting where we pay for it, so we can use some of the Pebble funds, or save funds instead of Pebble. So as doing some of these things, that to me, if we, you know, like the 4 acres and the CenturyLink, it kind of is like future projects, so that's kind of what I'm doing.
Flexibility.
Yeah. So, and then as we go to the activity fund, we are cleaning up, end of the year. You see that there's some negatives here, but since this report came out, we have cleaned those out. And then the nutrition, really the only thing I wanted to show here, there's no activity going on for sales, but there is some expenditures that was just basically the food and commodities, which is a yearly general journal entry, so that's why you see it here. But our cash balance compared to a year ago is up $24,000. And I also wanted to show you our lunch balances. As of July to July, it's about the same. We have $20,000 sitting, $20,500 last year, and this year we're at $23,009. All of this means is there's that much cash in students' accounts. And so that's all I have. If there's any questions, let me know.
Any financial questions or any of the other consent agenda items?
What is there for personnel?
I'm going to bring up personnel.
I don't know if you looked, but it's changed since about 30 minutes before the board meeting.
It could change right after the board meeting, too.
The principals have been busy hiring people.
They have been very busy. We are, and you can take a look there. Just want to let you know, if you know some people that are looking for some employment, we are looking for some food service people. I believe that we're looking for an associate, possibly special ed 1-to-1.
I have 1.5 positions open.
Okay. Any of the rest of you have anything there?
A half person.
But we do have some that are there. The sports staff, you can see where they're at. Vic's been working like crazy on a couple of those, and so is Mike as far as filling in a couple of those. I think are you guys set? You got your full?
I'm set.
Okay, all right. And then I think Tim has talked about there was a vacancy created, and the movement would be, you can see what she has.
That's what I didn't put transfer because I didn't have enough room and I was short on time because I had to get to this board meeting. So I left transfer. What this actually means is Everett was the middle school football coach, but he's moving to the assistant high school, and then Michael Hyde is moving in as the middle school. And I think I left her a message, but we figured it out.
Okay.
So, and then we called you. So.
That's kind of the wrap up. Like I said, I think Amy's still looking for 1.5, but we're looking for food service.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Just one more question or comment on the open enrollment. I mean, those are straightforward, but is the 6th grade, that's got to be the record, 136 students?
Is that a record for you out of there?
It's got to be a record
Yes.
for Gilbert,
It's-
right?
As far as I know, yes.
That's big.
How many, yeah, so big transfer in from St. Cecilia or?
Yeah, we had the biggest group from St. Cecilia's we've had, I think it was 16 maybe.
16.
Yeah, so, and the biggest before that was 12 or 13.
My group coming to you was a pretty big group too.
Must have
They're in
been.
17.
Yeah, 117. So the middle school, 7th grade is also fairly large for Gilbert. 8th grade is a little bit smaller, but yeah, that 6th grade is huge. So
We probably should have a 10-year plan for this kind of growth.
Probably. It's a good idea.
Maybe we should ask the St. Cecilia's folks to join some of our meetings.
You know, I ask every year if they'll give me a heads up for what's
Yeah, right.
coming,
Yeah.
and they won't do it. So they only will tell me, so this year they'll tell me this year's 5th grade, but they won't tell me this year's 4th grade.
As to how many are there? or
As to how many are
many
there, just so I can get a rough idea for planning for the future, but
I
they
bet we
won't.
got an inside job.
Well, you can twist arms.
know some people
That's
do
the
that.
thing. No, I ask every year and they never will tell
I
me.
would think
Do
that'd be
we know,
important.
we know though which of our kids are enrolled there, right? Which of our district students are enrolled at St. Cecilia's? We don't?
Only if
Don't they
it's
have
for
to-
reimbursement of
Yeah.
transportation.
Yeah, and they don't have to ask for reimbursement, so that's about it.
Oh, so there's not any sort of form if they're a district parent for them to go there?
We're assuming they're in school somewhere.
So if money doesn't follow them, we don't have to fill out a form? Gotcha. Okay.
Fundraisers, I included the fundraisers through December. So there's a new one on here from PTO on Square One.
And that was new to me, the other request, so I'm really unclear about what that is or how it operates. But something to do with student art and being able to like put their art on, like they'll upload the art onto a site, the parents can then buy it, have it like on a mug, I think, or things like that.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
Oh.
Yeah.
They've set the date for the PTO Carnival. Looks like Saturday, October 21st. And it looks like fruit sales. And so, anyway, that's through December.
Okay, thank you.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Stands approved. For calendar, the September meeting, I think you had a conflict for that Monday, Tyler, is that right?
Yeah, that, I won't be in town that Monday, but the rest of that week. I
Would-
don't know if that would work or not.
Is there a potential to move that to Tuesday, the 19th? Hey, you gotta be here. You gotta get your- Does that work? I don't know what about the back row. What's
I have
it?
a parent meeting at 6:30, but that won't last very long, so I can pop back in the morning.
We can
Is that
do that as long as we don't go past, it
12.
has to be done that, within a certain time frame, but that falls within the time frame because we have to approve the canvas votes within a time limit after the election, so we're good
That would work.
within.
Are you talking about the 19th?
Yeah, September
I'm
19th.
sorry, I was on the wrong week.
I've scheduled my DC parent meeting that night at 6:30.
Okay.
Just,
Just
yeah, I can run over and run back, so. If any of you want to go to DC, let me know.
You're
Not
flying,
on a
right?
bus anymore,
We are
right?
flying, yeah,
Yeah, it's
we're
not on a bus, that's
No,
good.
oh, amen.
All right, well, we'll shoot for the
Tuesday?
Tuesday, the 19th at 6.
We need to make sure we get that because it's on calendar for the 18th.
Yep. Want to make sure that that comes out.
And then we talked about the October 2nd work session for HALA,
That's the time on that one.
6 p.m.
6 o'clock.
And then we have October 9th.
It's a regular meeting at 6, right?
And October 9th at 6.
We've seen each other a lot.
John, do the new board members come in on the 19th?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
yep, and Sean's coming back, he said, so he'll be here to hand out.
He's bringing pizza and everything
Yeah,
else.
that's gonna be awesome.
No cheese. Celebrate my birthday.
Any other,
Thanks, Sean.
any other items to come before us today?
Move
If
to
not,
adjourn.
do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We stand adjourned. Thanks for joining us by video. Brian, that worked out really good.
See you, Brian.
Brian.
See y'all.
Okay.